So this is why every Sonic fan hates this character. Oh god.
There are Sonic characters that divide the fan base. Some people love Big the Cat, others hate him. Some defend
Yeah,
Charmy B,
big,
others
charmy,
want
or
him gone.
controversial.
But there's one character in Sonic history where the fan base is united. One character that every Sonic fan, regardless of their opinions on anything else, universally despises. Chris Thorndike from Sonic X. So why does
What?
every Sonic fan
Bro, I
hate him? Not
actually-
most
I actually
fans,
liked
every
him.
single one. Once you
Nah.
understand what Chris represents,
Maybe it's because I was so young I didn't understand. But was he that bad? Maybe I was just too young to understand.
what he takes away, and what he does to Sonic himself, you'll understand why this 12-year-old achieved something no other character in 30 years managed, making the entire Sonic fandom agree on something. So how did this happen? Let's investigate. To understand why every fan hates Chris, you need to understand what the show tried to make him. Chris Thorndike is a 12-year-old boy introduced in Sonic X as the human character Sonic meets when transported to Earth. He lives in a mansion with his grandfather, butler, and maid. He has a tech mogul father and a movie star mother. The show positions Chris as Sonic's best friend on Earth. He's supposed to be the audience's way into the story, the relatable kid who gets to hang out with Sonic. But here's what the show didn't account for. Chris actively derails the show. And when you start digging into how his character is written, you discover layer after layer of fundamental problems.
Really?
So what's the most fundamental issue that every Sonic fan recognizes? Chris's storylines are redundant. The show keeps telling the same story over and over. Chris is lonely. Chris wants friends. Chris worries about Sonic leaving. Repeat for 78 episodes. Chris has the same emotional struggle in episode 5 that he has in episode 50. He never grows. The writers just keep recycling Chris feels left out as if repeating the same arc counts as development. And here's what makes this unforgivable. Every episode focused on Chris is an episode not focused on Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, or Amy. Sonic X is adapting Sonic
true.
Adventure 1 and 2 games, with rich stories and iconic scenes. But the show keeps interrupting to check if Chris is feeling sad today. When you pause the Chaos arc for Chris having another breakdown, that's filler. When you interrupt Shadow's storyline for Chris's family issues, that's filler. The show wasted huge chunks of 78 episodes on a character nobody asked for. But the redundancy is just the surface. When you look closer, the problem gets worse. Here's what fans noticed when they analyzed screen time. Chris actively takes time away from characters who deserve it. Sonic X could have fleshed out Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Rogue, and Shadow in ways the games couldn't.
Hold on.
Without
How did he just pronounce Rouge?
Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Rogue, and Shadow.
Rogue? Come on, at least get it right.
In ways the games couldn't. Instead, the show gave their screen time to Chris. Tails is a genius inventor who could carry entire episodes. But Chris's grandfather Chuck fills the tech genius role. Tails becomes a supporting character in a show that should center him as Sonic's best friend. Amy has her own arc about growing stronger and more independent, but the show reduces her to having a crush, while Chris gets entire episodes dedicated to his emotional growth. Knuckles is the guardian of the Master Emerald, with a complex relationship to duty, but Sonic X turns him into comic relief while giving Chris the learning to let go storyline. The established Sonic cast has decades of personality and stories, but Sonic X decided it needed a human boy with wealthy kid problems taking up 40% of the runtime. Every minute spent on Chris is a minute stolen from characters fans actually care about. But is stolen screen time the worst part? Not even close. Because all of this, the redundancy, the stolen focus, the wasted potential, it all builds to one moment. One decision Chris makes that turns him from annoying character into the most hated character in Sonic history.
Really?
We'll get there, but first you need to understand how broken his writing truly is. And once you recognize this pattern, you'll start noticing something even more fundamental that's broken. Sonic is an action franchise. Speed, adventure, fighting robots, saving the world. The games are fast-paced and energetic. Sonic Adventure has you running through flooded cities. Sonic Adventure 2 has you escaping exploding islands. But here's what happens when you watch Sonic X. The show keeps grinding action to a halt so Chris can have emotional moments. The show builds tension with Eggman's schemes or Chaos's rampage, then cuts to Chris crying in his room about feeling lonely. The momentum dies. The action stops so a 12-year-old can process his feelings. This creates a jarring disconnect that every single fan experiences. You're watching Sonic fight Metal Sonic, then suddenly the show cuts to Chris having an emotional conversation about his parents. You're invested in Shadow's backstory and
I
Maria's
guess,
sacrifice. Then the episode pivots to Chris's family drama. And it's not that emotional moments are bad. Sonic Adventure 2 has incredible emotional weight with Shadow and Maria, but those emotions are tied to the action and stakes. Chris's emotions feel disconnected. His struggles don't enhance the plot, they interrupt it. How does the show treat Chris's problems? It treats his loneliness as equivalent to Eggman trying to conquer the world. It's not equivalent, but Sonic X keeps pausing the apocalypse to check on Chris's emotional state. And before we continue breaking down why Chris ruins Sonic X, if you don't subscribe right now, I'm forcing you to watch every Chris-focused episode back to back. That's about 30 episodes of filler. So hit that subscribe button before you're trapped in redundant emotional arc hell. But when you dig deeper, what do you discover? Something worse. Chris's character arc doesn't have a satisfying resolution. The show spends dozens of episodes on his emotional journey, but never properly concludes it. Chris's core issue is loneliness because his parents are absent. The show establishes this early and reinforces it constantly, so you'd expect resolution, parents changing their behavior, Chris finding fulfillment elsewhere, some emotional closure, but that never happens. His parents remain distant. Chris just accepts it and moves on. The show spent 50 plus episodes building this problem, then drops it without resolution. When season 3 ages Chris up to 18, the show never addresses what happened in those 6 years. All those Chris-focused episodes that took time from Sonic, they were building to nothing. The character doesn't get closure. The audience doesn't get resolution. That's not character development, that's padding runtime. And once you understand all these problems, you're ready to understand the moment that sealed Chris's fate forever. So are you ready? Here's where Chris goes from annoying filler character to genuinely hated by the entire Sonic fandom. The moment that, once you see it, explains everything. In Season 2's final arc, Sonic and his friends need to return to their home world. They've been on Earth for months. They have lives and responsibilities. Tails needs his workshop. Knuckles needs to guard the Master Emerald. Sonic belongs in his own world. The portal is ready, everything is set up. And what does Chris do? Knowing all of this, he sabotages the portal. He forced the portal to shut that would send them back. Why? Not because it's dangerous, but because he's afraid of being lonely again. Chris's emotional struggle leads him to directly interfere with Sonic's chance to return home. He traps Sonic and his friends in a dimension that's not theirs because he can't handle his feelings. Let's be clear, Chris betrays Sonic. After everything Sonic did for him, befriending him, protecting him, including him, Chris repays that by sabotaging Sonic's way home. He prioritizes his emotional comfort over Sonic's freedom and his friends' lives.
Honestly,
and here's what makes this unforgivable to every single fan. Sonic represents freedom, adventure, and independence. Chris literally traps him. The character who's supposed to be Sonic's friend becomes the character who cages him. Fans who grew up loving Sonic for his freedom watched a 12-year-old try to take that away. The show frames this as understandable, as something we should sympathize with. The narrative treats Chris's loneliness as justification for betraying his friends. It's not justification, it's selfishness. Once you see this scene, everything clicks into place. The redundancy, the stolen focus, the action disconnect, the unresolved arc. It all leads to this moment where Chris proves he was never Sonic's friend. He was a selfish kid who saw Sonic as his emotional support animal. But here's what proves Chris's problems aren't inevitable. Season 3 introduces Cosmo, another original character who joins Sonic's crew, and fans loved her. Cosmo is a plant alien who sacrifices herself to save
really
the
cool.
galaxy.
I love Cosmo.
She has a clear purpose in the story. She doesn't steal focus from the main cast. She enhances their arcs. Tails gets character development through his relationship with her. Her presence adds to the story instead of interrupting it. And when she dies, it's tragic because her arc had meaning. She wasn't repetitive. She didn't derail the action. She didn't betray Sonic. She was a character who served the story instead of hijacking it. So what does this show prove? That it could create original characters that work. Cosmo shows what Chris should have been, a character who enhances rather than replaces. The writers knew how to do this right. They just chose not to with Chris. This makes Chris's failure even more damning. It wasn't inevitable.
Okay, yeah, he
it
didn't
wasn't
really do
anime
anything the
originals
entire story,
always
really.
fail. It was a choice to write him badly, and fans recognize that. Chris Thorndike's legacy is being the cautionary tale that shaped every Sonic adaptation afterward. The Sonic movies learned from Sonic X's mistakes. They made Tom a supporting character with limited screen time who helps Sonic without stealing focus. Sonic Prime doesn't have human protagonists at all. Every modern Sonic adaptation looks at Chris and goes, don't do that. Don't create a human who takes over the show. Don't make the audience surrogate more important than Sonic. Don't waste screen time on redundant arcs. Chris is the example in every discussion about bad character additions. He's right up there with Scrappy-Doo and Poochie as characters that tried to be relatable and instead became universally despised symbols of executive-mandated additions. So this is why every Sonic fan hates Chris Thorndike. Not just some fans, every single one. Because his problems aren't subjective. They're structural failures that objectively harm the show. Every fan hates the redundancy. Watching the same Chris is lonely storyline repeat for 78 episodes isn't a matter of taste. It's objectively bad writing. Every fan hates the stolen screen time. When you tune in for Sonic and get Chris family drama, that's bait and switch. Every fan hates the action disconnect. Pausing Chaos's rampage to show Chris crying kills momentum everyone can feel. Every fan hates the unresolved arc. Spending dozens of episodes building parent issues, then abandoning it isn't controversial, it's incomplete storytelling. And every single Sonic fan hates the betrayal. Watching Chris sabotage the portal and trap Sonic isn't a love him or hate him moment, it's a character actively hurting the hero we all came to see. So now you know, Chris isn't hated because of bad luck or unfair treatment. He's hated because every single decision with his character was wrong. And every Sonic fan, no matter what else they disagree on, can see it. Do you agree Chris deserves the universal hate? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe. Well...